Ryan Blaney caps off a dominant 6-week stretch, clinching Team Penske their second straight NASCAR Cup Series championship. Wow, it just hit me. The season's really over. This one went by fast. Feels like just yesterday I was watching Wiz Khalifa perform at the Clash at the Coliseum. Or maybe that was a weird fever dream I had. Either way, how's it going, y'all? My name is Eric. Welcome to Out of the Groove. Just got done watching the Phoenix Raceway NASCAR Cup Series Championship finale. Bell, Blaney, Byron, and Larson, this year's contenders. A lot of new blood in the championship for Byron and Blaney making their debuts. Bell was in it last year, Larson 2 years ago. The changing of the guard finally complete with Kevin Harvick making his final NASCAR start today. Many different storylines. I'm going to do my best to cover each and every one of them in this video. We'll talk about the champion, of course, in a moment. The rest of the championship four will discuss how they fared today. We'll talk Kevin Harvick, Eric Almirola making his final start as a full-time NASCAR Cup Series driver. We'll discuss the controversial NASCAR playoff format and so much more. But first, I want to start with the race winner real quick, Ross Chastain, because NBC, it took them like nearly 30 minutes after the checkered flag to finally interview Ross Chastain. I think they interviewed Blaney twice before they got to Ross, which, I mean, fair enough. The bigger overall story is the championship. I get it. And this is the first time since the Championship 4 became a thing that a non-Championship 4 driver won the championship race. I should take a shot every time I say championship. No, don't. This you're going to be in for a long night. But hey, credit to Ross Chastain. Has had a very up and down season. Got eliminated in the round of 12, but hey, he showed up today, and he wasn't going down without a fight. In the past, we typically see non-championship drivers kind of lay over, race the championship 4 with an extra overabundance of caution. Racing with caution is not in Ross Chastain's DNA. He raced Ryan Blaney very aggressively in the middle portions of this event. On that final restart with about 31 laps to go, he made a soaring move around the outside from row 2 to take the lead, and he never looked back. And he never did anything wrong. I don't want it to sound like I'm criticizing Ross Chastain. He didn't, race Blaney or Larson or anyone dirty. He was 100% fair. I'm just surprised to see a non-championship 4 driver race that aggressively, because again, we have not seen it in the past. We also haven't seen Ross Chastain in this position very often. Figures that Ross Chastain wouldn't back down to anyone. I love it. Kept the race interesting, especially in the final stage. Congrats to Ross. Second win of the season. Fourth of his career. Sends Trackhouse into the offseason with something to smile about. But all right, now let's talk about the champion. What a weekend for Ford. Ben Rhodes, Cole Custer, Ryan Blaney today. Ford swept NASCAR championship weekend. How about that? Ryan Blaney won this championship today because 1, he had the best long run car, better than William Byron or Kyle Larson, and 2, he had just enough poise under pressure. Almost lost it for a bit. Ross Chastain was getting under his skin, we could all tell. But when Blaney fell behind on that final pit stop sequence, some of it was on the driver, some of it was on the pit crew. He lost 4 positions, came out 6th. He had a good enough long run car and just enough grace under pressure to drive back through the top 5, beat Byron on the restart, hunt down Kyle Larson, race real close side by side for several laps before pulling ahead. An aggressive, competitive, but very fair battle between championship contenders. If this race turns into Friday night's Truck Series race with overtime after overtime after overtime, I don't think Ryan Blaney wins the title. Luckily for Ryan Blaney, this race ran green just long enough. Really, where this was decided was on that final restart with 31 to go. I think Jeff Burton noted this on the NBC broadcast, but if Kyle Larson, who just like in 2021, his pit crew got him ahead of the championship 4 late in the race, if Larson was able to clear Hamlin and Eric Jones, the guys who taken 2 tires first, and get that clean air, it would have been tough. I think Blaney would have gotten there, probably still would have passed him, but it would have been close. Instead, because Ross Chastain, also on 4 tires, was able to make that big move around the outside and get clear to the lead first and get that clean air, suddenly Larson's advantage was taken away. Suddenly he was in like almost equally as dirty of air as Blaney was, and Blaney clearly had the better car. So the 12 made pretty quick work of the 5. That's where this race was decided. Man, if Larson gets a little better jump on that restart, is able to clear the 2 leaders first, might be singing the same song we did in 2021, just saying. But Ryan Blaney is your champion. Credit to Jonathan Hassler, the crew chief, making the right adjustments. Honestly, credit to Roger Penske. When Blaney was, getting into it with Chastain in stage 3, giving shots to the rear bumper, Roger Penske came over the radio and reminded Blaney to be smooth and steady, gave him more awareness of the bigger picture, and it may have made a difference. So great team effort tonight all around by the 12 bunch. They are your champions. Wow, remember earlier in the season, like at the very beginning of the year, Blaney faced criticism for not winning enough. And this is criticism he's faced really his entire NASCAR Cup Series career. His average finish is always, 12th or 13th, which is really good. He gets a lot of top 10s. He's usually in the playoffs and at least somewhat in championship contention, but he doesn't win a whole lot. He had 1 win a year for the longest time. He broke through and got 3 wins in 2021. Last year, though, went winless, while his teammate went on to win the championship. So maybe some of that criticism was fair then. I don't think it's fair anymore. Ryan Blaney won the championship tonight because he had a great long run car, great poise under pressure. But bigger than that, Ryan Blaney won this championship because over the last 6 races, he's been dominant. The top teams in NASCAR have focused all of their resources on these tracks. They've brought their best equipment, put their best foot forward, and Ryan Blaney's beat them. He won at Talladega, a super speedway. A few weeks later in the clutch, he won at Martinsville, a tough short track, marquee events. He was 6th at Las Vegas, 2nd at Homestead, Miami, 2 very different intermediates. And tonight at Phoenix, another unique racetrack, another 2nd place finish. The most important stretch of the season, and Ryan Blaney put up 2 firsts and 2 seconds. That's tough to beat. Now, I've already seen the criticism. Oh, William Byron had a much better all-around season. He did. He had twice as many wins, 3 versus 6, more top 5s, more top 10s, more laps led, no doubt. But for 20 years now, think about that, 2 decades, NASCAR has placed an extra emphasis on the final 10 races. For 20 years, every race team has gone into the season knowing the rules. The regular season matters. It matters more today than I think it did, in the mid-2000s, early 2010s, I'd argue. But the final 10 races still matter the most. That's what you're building towards. That's where your focus shifts. Again, all of the top teams in NASCAR put all their focus on these final 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks. Ryan Blaney was the best. By far, the 12 team has dominated. Sure, William Byron had the better all-around season, but that hasn't mattered for 20 years now. If you want to criticize the current format and say, hey, we should have a 3-race final round instead of just a 1-race finale, I'm all ears. I'm open to that. But fans acting like Ryan Blaney's championship is somewhat less valid, I just can't get behind that. Look, celebrate making the championship 4. That's what I've been trying to promote for years now. Getting to the championship 4 is a huge deal. It's like making the Final 4 in college basketball. Teams raise banners in their arenas just for making the Final 4. NASCAR teams should do the same. William Byron getting to the championship 4, huge accomplishment. Fantastic season. But when things mattered most, Byron almost choked at Martinsville, and today was maybe the 3rd best of the championship 4. Ryan Blaney was the best when it mattered most, at least of playoff drivers. Ross Chastain, good run today. I want to talk about some of the other championship 4 drivers. Man, Kyle Larson, so close. He was my pick, and all night long, he just kind of hovered somewhere inside the top 5. It was clear early on he did not have a long run car. He was falling off on the back ends of runs, but then he was gaining spots on pit road because he has a great pit crew and would maybe make up a spot or 2 on restarts because he's an aggressive driver. Could kind of say the same about William Byron. Clean Air, I think, masked some of their struggles early on because he won the pole. Also on pit road, he had the best pit box, so he was gaining spots on pit road almost every cycle. For much of this race, it was Byron and Larson with the track position, but maybe not as good of cars, while Blaney, who started deeper in the field, was losing spots on pit road from time to time, was trying to catch him. It took a long time for that to finally flip. It took really until like middle of stage 3 for Blaney to finally sort of get the edge. Christopher Bell likely would have been in the mix. He was running 6th, and I think moving forward when the right front brake rotor exploded heading into turn 3, pounded the outside wall. Christopher Bell was the only championship 4 driver to fall out of this race, and unfortunately that happened, I think, before halfway. Really disappointing end to what was another great season for Christopher Bell. Back-to-back championship 4 appearances this year, 2 more wins, another clutch win in the round of 8. Great playoffs, or at least great first 9 weeks for Christopher Bell. Just Man, hate to see that take you out of the championship. I don't know if there was something with their setup that was putting more strain on the brakes, or if Christopher Bell was having to use more brake to get something out of the car, or if it was just a fluky parts failure. We don't know for sure, but man, stings to lose out on a championship fight because of a brake failure. But still, it was great to see all 4 championship contenders run well. They all brought good cars. Larson, Byron, fastest in qualifying, better short run cars. Blaney and Bell didn't qualify quite as well, but they moved forward almost immediately. Some great battles on restarts and down the stretch. Blaney versus Larson, both racing each other really hard, but very respectively. Truck Series could learn a thing or two. Great stuff. Absolutely great stuff. Let's take a look at the top finishers just real quick. A few names I want to highlight. Obviously, Ross Chastain getting the win. I know it's going to be overshadowed. That's just the nature of the game, but still, congratulations. Chris Buescher had a great race, very competitive. RFK has a lot to be excited about going into next year. Even Brad Keselowski, who, congratulations on the birth of his son, I think yesterday, flew to the track last minute, was able to race, had to start at the rear of the field today, drove all the way through the pack into the top 10, I believe. At one point, he ends up finishing 15th, but still, RFK, lots to be excited about. I got to mention Martin Truex Jr. Man, all it took was him getting eliminated from the playoffs for the old 19 team to finally show up and have a great race. Goodness gracious. And Kevin Harvick continues his remarkable Phoenix Raceway top 10 streak. I believe this is now 21 straight Phoenix races with the top 10. That is unbelievable. Of course, he's a 9-time winner. Great run for Harvick. Qualified on the front row, ran inside the top 5 for much of this race. I think even led some laps. Reminds me a lot of Jimmy Johnson's final season in the 48. Remember, he finished 5th in the season finale at Phoenix. Went out on a high note after really a down year, missed the playoffs. I think Harvick's season this year was better than Jimmy Johnson's 2020, but it's still cool for him to, have such a great race in his, final NASCAR Cup Series effort. And not too far behind him is Eric Almirola. Eric Almirola finishes 13th. Just last week confirmed he will not return to the NASCAR Cup Series full-time next year. He's still likely going to race, maybe Xfinity, gonna try to put some part-time deals together, but it sounds like this is Eric Almirola's final race as a full-time Cup Series driver. And likewise, a very strong effort for a team that really hasn't raced up to their standards most of this season. But there's a look at the top finishers. Now, before we go, let's talk a little more about the playoffs and put Phoenix Raceway on the groovy gauge. One final time here in 2023. Let's start with the race itself. I know Phoenix has faced plenty of criticism. It's not a great championship venue. It's not super action-packed. I get that. I hear that. I understand all that. I even agree with that to a degree. It may not be action-packed, but boy, those stands were packed. And NBC made sure to remind us that the campgrounds were packed. Fans in the Phoenix, Arizona region show up for this race. The track poured millions of dollars into infield renovations, general facility renovations. It's one of the nicest tracks to visit on the NASCAR Cup Series schedule. I'd say it's probably top 5 for sure, arguably top 3. I'm a fan of Phoenix being the finale. Now, don't get me wrong. I would like to see Homestead get a shot at it once again. I know NASCAR ISC is never going to relinquish the championship date, but it'd be kind of cool to see Las Vegas Motor Speedway get the championship race. Maybe Charlotte, if it's not too cold. Considering how good the next gen race is at 1.5 miles, I would like the championship race to once again be at 1.5 miles sooner rather than later. But I don't agree with the dunking on Phoenix. Is it the most thrilling racetrack? Absolutely not. But I don't want my championship race to be nuts. Like, I'm just going to be completely honest. Maybe this is an unpopular opinion, but I actually want the championship race to be a little boring. I don't want a ton of wrecks. I don't want guys just taking shots, knocking each other out of the way. I don't want lap traffic blocking 3 lanes and making the leaders, tangle. I want the championship race to be fairly straightforward. I want the fastest drivers and cars to bubble to the front and duke things out amongst themselves, like they did tonight. You can't tell me that Larson versus Blaney battle with 20 to go or whatever it was wasn't exciting. Larson hung in there a lot longer than I thought he would. When one race decides your champion, I don't want a bunch of fluky, wild, crazy, chaotic nonsense to get in the way. I want a straightforward NASCAR Cup Series race. And say what you will about Phoenix, it delivers straightforward racing, at least on the Cup side more times than not. Leave it to the Truck Series to make a farce out of Phoenix. They found a way to make Phoenix look like Bowman Gray the other night. I don't know how they did that. Phoenix is a very good finale track. I'd love to see some renovations made at Homestead, Miami, bring the championship date back there sometime in the future. But if it comes back to Phoenix eventually, I won't be opposed to that either. Phoenix is a fine championship venue. That's like my biggest hot take of the season. Folks constantly roasting me anytime I say that. I'm not backing down. Back to the Groovy Gauge. This was a good, solid race overall. I'm going to go... I know my scores have been so boring these playoffs. We've just gotten a lot of pretty good races. Nothing insane, nothing crazy really, but a lot of pretty good. This was another pretty good race. 65%. I think that's fair. The opening stage was a bit dry. Stage 2, you had the drama of Christopher Bell blowing a brake rotor and falling out. Really, business picked up in Stage 3. And let's be honest, the end of the race is the most important part. That's the part we all remember most. So Stage 3 was pretty action-packed between the Blaney, Chastain, Truex battle, and then Blaney versus Larson, the battle on pit road, track position versus long-run speed. Stage 3 was pretty great. So I'm going to give this race a 65%. I'm glad these last 2 races turned out to be pretty good because I was worried after the way the weekend started with trucks. If you saw my video that I filmed out on my driveway, I just had to vent. I was riled up Friday night. Actually, it was Saturday morning. It was like 3 a.m. But the Xfinity race yesterday, I know I haven't had the chance to talk about it too much, was great, was fantastic. Congratulations to Cole Custer. Boy, I didn't see him winning that thing. Honestly, very consistent this year. A ton of top 10 finishes right there in the mix almost every single week, but didn't have a win since July. His only 2 wins on the year were both road course wins. I didn't see that translating at Phoenix, but I should have listened to my buddy Brennan Poole because he said on our podcast, Power Hour, a couple weeks back, that word around the Xfinity garage was that Stuart Haas had found something. You saw Riley Herbst dominate Homestead. Cole Custer is in the mix. Cole Custer was strong these final couple weeks. I should have listened to him. Stuart Haas, they found something on the Xfinity Series side, and you saw that on full display last night in the Xfinity Championship. So congrats to Cole Custer. Just, brief debrief there. Once again, talking about the playoff format, I like the current playoff system. It values the regular season. Martin Truex Jr. would not have made it to the round of 8 without all of those playoff points he'd accumulated the first 26 weeks. But the format still puts an added emphasis on the final 10 races, especially those final 4 races. That round of 8, and then of course the championship, you need to bring your best stuff. It puts pressure on the top teams to show up. Getting to the championship 4 is a huge accomplishment. If I was to make any edit to the playoff format, I would consider expanding the final round into an actual round with more than 1 race. I get why people don't like the 1 race finale. To me, that doesn't invalidate Ryan Blaney's championship tonight. You'd have to take a hard look at every other championship won in this format, and I know some fans do. Some fans don't believe there's been a real NASCAR champion since Matt Kenseth in 2003. But again, think about that for a moment. 2003. A lot of y'all watching this video probably weren't born in 2003, let alone watching NASCAR in 2003. That was more than 20 years ago now. NASCAR has used some form of chase or playoff system for a long, long time. The drivers know it, have accepted it. The teams know it, have accepted it. It's not to say it can't be tweaked or adjusted to be more fair, more balanced, more whatever, but I'm not going to let it keep me up at night and saying, oh, so-and-so's championship was invalid, this, that, or the other. I'm tired of baseball. They're talking about whether the playoff format is fair or not. Other sports have this issue all the time, and it's exhausting. It's exhausting. Right now, we should be celebrating Ryan Blaney, final 6 races of the year, final 4 races of the year, especially when the best teams brought their best stuff. It was that bright neon number 12 out front of the pack more times than not. Congratulations to Ryan Blaney, Team Penske, back-to-back titles, and they've been sneaky about it. Man, oh man. Let me know your thoughts of tonight's race down in the comment section below. Thanks for tuning in, folks. Gosh, another year of race recaps in the books. Don't worry, y'all. Out of the Groove is not going anywhere. We've got tons of off-season content planned. Be sure to hit that subscribe button down below so you don't miss any of it. And a huge thank you to my Patreon supporters for keeping me going all year long, allowing me to go to many of the races this year. Tracks I've never been to before. Get to bring you guys exclusive at-track content. Wouldn't be possible without your support. I will see you all again later this week. Also, fun little announcement. I'll be moving setups over the next couple of weeks, so you'll see my set change a bit, and then hopefully in time for the holidays I'll be in a new permanent location that should be more glamorous than ever before, fingers crossed. So if you're into the aesthetics, this is going to change here sooner rather than later. Thanks for tuning in, folks. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend. Congratulations once again to Ryan Blaney, a NASCAR Cup Series champion.